esteemed guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. I would like to begin by thanking Honorable Mrs. Justice Aisha Malik for not only her valuable time but lending her voice to this very important thematic area. We would also like to extend our thank you to Dr. Adnan and his wonderful team for all the support they've extended to us in the past few months in completing this study. We would also like to extend our gratitude to the stakeholders that agreed to partake in our surveys, in our interviews, in our focus group discussions that allowed us to identify and map the many apparent and hidden legal barriers to fair representation for women in the justice sector. Lastly, I would like to thank the Women in Law team for working with us and for Nida to allowing me in co-authoring this study with her. The international human rights regime recognizes the importance of women's right to participate fully in public life, including the justice sector. This is recognized in the Agenda 2030. SDG 5.5 calls to ensure women's full and effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels of decision making in political, economic, and public life. SDG 5C calls to adopt and strengthen sound policies and enforceable legislation for the promotion of gender equality and empowerment of all women and girls at all levels. Similarly, SDG 16 on peace, justice, and strong institutions calls to promote peaceful and inclusive societies for sustainable development, provide access to justice for all, and build effective, accountable, and inclusive institutions at all levels. In July 2015, the Committee for CEDAW adopted General Recommendation number 33. This is an important document in the sense of highlighting the intersection of key areas with access to justice, including justiciability, availability, accessibility, good quality justice systems, effective remedies, and accountabilities. The general recommendation calls on state parties to address discriminatory laws and processes and to ensure that justice systems are efficient, independent, and impartial, provide effective remedies that are gender sensitive, and protect women's privacy. It also calls on the need to address gender stereotyping in the justice systems and puts emphasis on raising awareness and providing capacity building opportunities to judges regarding CEDAW. Pakistan is a signatory to numerous international human rights conventions such as the ICCPR, ICESCR, CEDAW that call on state parties to eliminate hurdles for and discrimination against women to ensure equal access to public life. That said, while women account for 49% of the population, their representation in leadership, policy making, and the justice sector remains extremely limited. In the higher judiciary, for instance, women account for a mere 5.5%. The aim of this study has then been to highlight how this persisting disparity translates into further limiting the lived experiences, the peculiar circumstances, and differing needs that can otherwise inform decision-making, policies, judgments, and operations of the institutions which have the capacity to impact not just the women in law, but also those litigants who approach the courts. The study highlights the gaps in existing practices and barriers, both apparent and hidden, that hinder access to fair representation in the justice sector. Our findings illustrate that in addition to gender stereotyping and patriarchal mindsets, there are also hidden barriers that are circumstantial only to women, such as travel restrictions, financial barriers in contesting bar elections, lack of infrastructure to accommodate working mothers, etc. The study concludes with policy recommendations for all stakeholders and are based on our respondents and also our analysis of the primary and secondary data. I will now provide a brief overview of the research methodology that we employed in undertaking this gap analysis. Given the strong linkages between the justice sector and society, it was a socio-legal approach primarily. The geographical focus has been in Multan, Rawalpindi, and Lahore. There are four major methods of data collection that we employed, which were surveys, interviews, focus group discussion, and the team's participatory observations. The surveys and interviews were directed towards female law students, female lawyers, female partners at law firms, female bar council members, and other key stakeholders within the justice sector. We were able to secure 101 responses to these surveys, which served as the basis for data collection and mapping the status of representation in these three cities within Punjab. To further supplement this information, we also interviewed male members of the justice sector, including lawyers, partners, prosecutors, and the Prosecutor General Punjab. In addition, we held 2 focus group discussions. One was held in Rawalpindi and the other was held virtually to understand the particular barriers in judicial appointments and more broadly barriers in the workplace for female lawyers. This primary research component was further supplemented by the observations of the authors and other women in law team that they have on challenges they have faced in the profession so far. To give further context, we also conducted an extensive desk review which looked at international legal obligations, instruments, regional policies, national laws, and pertaining to the rights of women in the justice sector. Given the significant involvement of individuals in our primary research, it was pertinent for us to uphold key research ethics of obtaining consent, maintaining anonymity and confidentiality. We also encouraged participation from all socioeconomic classes, religions, or ethnicities to make this study as inclusive as possible. Before Nida provides a more detailed walkthrough of the study, I would like to round up here and mention that we have attempted to highlight not only the apparent legal loopholes, but also various other hidden, systematic, or structural barriers that are faced by women in accessing parity in the justice sector. This gap analysis report lists legal gaps, our findings from primary and secondary research, comparative jurisdictions, to develop a broad understanding of very deeply rooted issues. We sincerely hope that this study is able to inform and initiate much needed legal and social reform and capacity building that can ensure fair representation in the justice sector. Thank you.